Ready? You can proceed, Madam.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, at the abrupt suspension, I was intimating to this honorable House that there were last-minute contracts that disturbed me, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And I will end by saying, in respect of these so-called, and I call last-minute contracts that I've had the privilege to have sight of, I find that the terms of these contracts, Mr. Deputy Speaker, were unfair, they were prejudicial to the government of the Bahamas. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I found that they are a burden on this budget and by extension, the Bahamian people. Mr. Deputy Speaker, when we enter into contracts and agreements on behalf of the people of the Bahamas, we must demonstrate that we are a government that cares. And a government that cares is a government that shares. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I hasten to add, you cannot share what you do not have. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I now will refer briefly to the findings of the latest audit reports of the Auditor General's Office that affect this budget in terms of the way forward and recommendations for fiscal management of Department Financial Affairs. And I think I have the budget reports here. The Deputy Speaker, in case we need any reference for the urban renewal, and then the budget here for the Department or the Ministry of Social Services, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and so they are here, and of course, Mr. Deputy Speaker, they are here for this honorable House. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we cannot and will not be paying for medical services not performed and will continue to report acts of fraud to the police for investigation, prosecution, and I want to add this, Mr. Deputy Speaker, hopefully restitution. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we not only want to report the matter and have it investigated, we need the money back. The Bahamian people needs the money. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we will not be paying for services in advance, and products will be paid for upon prompt receipt of the item approved under requisition. I'm doing my best, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to limit the information. Audits are here. The coupons designated for emergency cases will be kept under new strict security measures. And we will improve our financial management of resources placed in our care under the Ministry of Social Services. That's all I'm saying, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The reports are here. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we will look into a compliance unit to identify, we're going to look into training and identifying a team of specialists to monitor the operations of the ministry, whether or not services requested and approved have been rendered are the items that they will be responsible for, and to ensure, among other things, that clients do not abuse the assistance program. The Deputy Speaker, I was trying to forbear, but how can we pay a bill to a person that is not even living? The Deputy Speaker, it's here in the audit report. We cannot continue to operate in this fashion. Mr. Deputy Speaker.
The service was provided after they died?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, the death certificate was there. There was no individual at the time, and still the check was cashed, paid and cashed. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I respect the Auditor General's report and their findings. We will make sure. I said I was trying to forbear. I was trying to forbear.
What happened?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, in the interest of time and in moving forward in the people's time, we are putting control in place to ensure that these anomalies do not continue and not happen again. Suffice it to say. Let us move on to a brighter and a better Bahamas. So, Deputy Speaker, we will make sure requests for assistance are legitimate and for a period to allow all persons who need help equal access to their fair share of the rations. That's all we have, rations. That's all we were left with, rations. The Deputy Speaker increased care, control, and custody of these emergency coupons. Implementation of policy measures to ensure proper checks and balances as it regards processing and delivery of services. The Deputy Speaker, we do not want to wait 2 years after an individual has submitted an application for assistance. The individual has died, and then the service is rendered and the check cashed. We don't want to do this, Mr. Deputy Speaker. We have emergency cases, and so we must be very caring and sensitive to the needs of our people. Optimum quality care, Mr. Deputy Speaker, will be the hallmark of my leadership in the ministry. Implementation of policy measures to ensure proper checks and balances as it regards processing and delivery of services, improved record keeping in accordance with best data management practices, integrated electronic database management system encompassing a confidential social services register to track the input and output processes and services in relation to clients similar to that provided in the medical fields. The Deputy Speaker, I have already instructed, and they are working, the formation of a committee in-house for the sole purpose of preparing the Social Services Assistance Guide, together with other publications to provide our clients with information regarding the assistance provided by the department and the ministry, in addition to a policy handbook for staff members to ensure standardized operations and practices, all in an aim, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to produce quality customer care. We offer a service, and we will do so with care. A government that cares is a government that shares. The Deputy Speaker, we expect the product will be ready for distribution immediately after summer break, and that is the publication of the assistance guide. Persons want to know what services we offer, what is the application process, and what is the period. The Deputy Speaker, I am sure that the data management system electronically will bring to my attention instances when our services and the process time is falling outside of the period allocated. A government that cares is a government that shares. The RISE program. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the RISE program, renewing, inspiring, sustaining, empowering, is a pilot project funded by a loan from the Inter-American Development Bank. The program is well-intentioned, Mr. Deputy Speaker. It is a cash transfer program which transfers cash grant to approved beneficiaries. These beneficiaries must fulfill pre-specified education and health conditions. Mr. Deputy Speaker, at its implementation stage, we have found, however, some inherent defects that has perhaps impacted the slow progress of the project, and we intend to enter discussions with our partners with a view to making adjustments to the conditions and adding realistic control measures, inclusive of a requirement to show an intention to come off of welfare programs for those who can, and as a condition to approval for benefit. As it stands, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the program requires increased transparency and accountability, and it is incumbent upon me, as they say, the first-time attorney who is the Minister of Social Services, to ensure that the recipients under the terms of the RISE agreement, before they are bound to it, understand the requirements and conditions that apply to them. In the interim, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we intend to process use of the debit cards and only issue coupons in emergency cases or at the strict discretion of senior management. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the state of the coupons in regard to the former government is unsustainable, to say the least. we will not continue along that path. It will be secured, it will be controlled, and the coupons will be recorded and accounted for. Mr. Deputy Speaker, so as not to preempt a final report with respect to the RISE unit, suffice it to say that, truthfully, I am not happy with the results or lack thereof in respect to the program after 3 years of receiving the loan. But as they say, Mr. Speaker, fix it. It's a hard pill to swallow, but they say fix it, Mr. Speaker, and fix it we will. Mr. Deputy Speaker, with your indulgence, allow me in this penultimate paragraph to speak to the constituents of Seabreeze. The Deputy Speaker, Seabreeze is made up of a cross-section of individuals from multiple socio-economic backgrounds. They have chosen me, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I have chosen them. Mr. Deputy Speaker, my constituency team and I will make the needs of the Seabreeze constituency a priority. We have already held our first constituency meeting, and the captains, together with the association, has assisted with summer employment placements. We're here to get a job done, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and we have begun our work. Our immediate attention will be to ensure residents in the area receive some assistance from the agencies designated to assist them, as many are still suffering from the ravages of Hurricane Matthew. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the residents of Seabreeze want to see their communities clean. Hence, I will not and cannot support the continued contracts of any individual, Mr. Deputy Speaker, who has reneged on their part of the agreement to keep clean the areas designated to them. Finally, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we will organize the Neighborhood Community Watch and enter into discussions with the relevant authorities to resolve the lack of lighting in the area that lends itself to criminal activity. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we will identify within this year a site suitable for the development of a multi-use community center and ensure the proper cleanup of the environment to secure the value of the investments of the home and property owners in the Seabreeze constituency. These are individuals who have worked hard, they've worked long, and they deserve to live in a peace, in a safe and clean environment. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I told them in walking to their homes and in the community, it is my responsibility. Any concern of yours, Seabreeze, is a concern of mine. Mr. Deputy Speaker, after 5 years of waste and what appears to me to be mismanagement, unaccountability, and non-transparency, all the survivors of that sinking ship, I told them it was a sinking ship, and I tried to offer some life vests, but everyone didn't take it. But the ark is closed. The people have spoken, and all the survivors of the ship that went under have to say for themselves is fix it, find it. Mr. Deputy Speaker, to that I will say this. The same God who was with the Bahamian people on the mountaintop is the same God with us in the valley. And in this quest, I echo the words of that old Negro spiritual. We shall overcome someday. Mr. Speaker, God bless this new government, and God bless the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I say thank you to Seabreeze, and happy Father's Day. Thank you.
As many. The chair recognizes the member for Bamboo Town.
Mr. Speaker, be it resolved that the business of this House to continue beyond 7 p.m. Thursday, the 15th of June, 2017.
Being moved and second that the business of this House continue beyond 7 p.m. As many in favor may remain seated. Those opposed would stand. It's being carried. The chair The chair recognizes the member for Freetown.
Mr. Speaker, It is an honor and indeed a great pleasure for me to rise in this historic place. Huh? The House of Assembly of the Parliament of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. This working? On behalf of the wonderful constituents of Freetown. Mr. Speaker, Deputy Speaker, sorry. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this is my first speech in the House of Assembly. So forgive me if I seem nervous, unsure, in awe of this enormous responsibility that has been placed upon my shoulders by the 4,598 registered voters of Freetown. Mr. Speaker, Deputy Speaker, the people of Freetown have sent me to this place to represent them to the best of my ability. They want me to come here to debate, to shout, and if necessary, scream from the mountaintops on behalf of their interests and concerns, and I want them to rest assured that is exactly what I intend to do. Mr. Speaker, the constituents of Freetown are not greedy or needy people. Many of them are ordinary citizens who want ordinary things. They want a decent job, they want a decent home, they want a safe community in which to live, and they want decent and safe schools for their children to attend. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, these are not unreasonable requests, so I am indeed honored to come to this place on this day, at this time, to speak on their behalf, to let them and all the Bahamas know how I, as their elected representative, intend to represent them. Mr. Deputy Speaker, before I proceed, I'd like to thank the awesome people of Freetown for their overwhelming support. Mr. Deputy Speaker, despite the intense effort by some on the other side to keep me out of this place, the great people of Freetown had other plans. You will remember, Mr. Speaker, that the PLP and their operatives saw fit to first remove 2 strong F&M polling divisions from my constituency, and second, change the name of the constituency from Montague to Freetown. Mr. Speaker, by changing the name from Montague to Freetown, the only constituency to undergo a name change and one of the few constituencies to have had the same name for over 40 years, the PLP attempted to surreptitiously convince the voters that a constituency with the name of Freetown could only and should only be represented by a PLP. When the name change and reconfiguration of my constituency was ratified in this very place, someone was overheard saying, let the Agler take that. He thought he had Montague. Now he got Freetown. To which much laughter and jeering would have followed. Many PLPs thought that I grew up living a life that was sheltered and privileged and could not, therefore, campaign in the economically disadvantaged areas of my constituency with the ease and comfort that their candidates could. Oh, how they underestimated me, Mr. Deputy Speaker. You see, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I run a business, Superwash, for the past 25 years. And that meant I spent many of my working hours in the heart and belly of this island. Every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I immerse myself in making my business a success, moving with ease and comfort through those very economically disadvantaged areas the PLP thought I was afraid to venture. As a result, Mr. Speaker, on May the 10th, 2017, Election Day, the salami blew in, and the people of Freetown rose up and in overwhelming numbers marched down to the ballot box and voted for Dionisio de Aguilar and the Free National Movement. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I was truly and genuinely humbled that the people of Freetown delivered to me 60% of the vote and a win in 10 out of the 12 polling divisions. What a mandate, Mr. Speaker. And I intend to take that mandate and deliver on the promises I would have made on the campaign trail. Deputy Speaker, I want the people of Freetown to know that each and every day I work as the Minister of Tourism and Aviation. I have their concerns for better jobs and a better life front and center in my mind. More often than not, when I visited a home in Freetown, one of my constituents would plead for the opportunity to work. I want to work, Mr. Diagla. Just give me a job. It breaks my heart, Mr. Speaker, to see so many of my constituents willing and able to work, but due to a terrible economy, mismanaged and neglected for 5 long and painful years, they could not find meaningful employment. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we intend to change that. And with all the business experience that I would have gained running Superwash, I will work tirelessly and relentlessly to ensure that decent, stable, well-paying jobs are provided in adequate quantities to give my constituents and our people the dignity and self-esteem that such stable jobs provide. However, before I proceed, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I would like to thank a number of additional people for making it possible for me to stand in this House and make the maiden speech I am now making. First and foremost, there is Almighty God, without whose presence and blessing, none of this would be possible. Second, there is my dear wife of 26 years, Saskia, who has resolutely stood by my side, offering her wise counsel and loving support, and whose strong character and amazing organizational skills have kept me focused and on track in my journey to the promised land. And of course, our 2 sons, Alexander and Oliver, whose complete lack of interest in my political career keeps me grounded and reminds me daily that while this job may be important to me, nothing is more important than family. Third, there is my mother, who is now in her 80s, although one cannot tell, and who has been my greatest contributor and most avid supporter. Despite her age, she attended the rallies and worked the phones, spreading the word and getting out the vote. When I first expressed an interest in running and sought her advice on whether I should run, she replied, "Boy, don't mess with that." Her reluctance for me to enter frontline politics stemmed from the fact that my late father and her husband of 51 years, Vincent Yelverton Diagla, had run for a seat in this House exactly 50 years earlier in the general election of 1967 and had unfortunately been on the wrong side of history and lost. My father had always cautioned me and my brother to avoid politics at all costs. For, he said, by entering politics, it makes you say unpleasant things to people and unpleasant things about people that under normal circumstances you would never say because your upbringing and your adherence to a code of common decency prevented you from so saying. Every time I hear Mr. Roberts, the current chairman of the PLP, open his mouth to belittle my accomplishments in business and in the community and spread false rumors about my good character and reputation to score points in this vicious game called politics, I say to myself, Daddy, now I understand why you stay well clear of this House and focused on helping your country through your love of business and your love of Bahamian art. I pray and hope that one day we can reach that place where my father had always hoped and prayed that we could be, where we conduct the sport of politics with a level of civility and decency, void of character assassination and vitriolic and vicious diatribe. Finally, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I would like to thank my campaign team, led by Cristobal Gomez, Emily Colebrook, Chantel Morley, Joanne Cash, Arthur Ray Thompson, Ricky Adderley, and many, many other volunteers whose countless hours, hard work, and dedication to the cause contributed to the resounding victory that we enjoyed. A special mention must also go out to Richard Lightbourne, the former MP for the Freetown area, who served his constituents loyally and faithfully during his 5-year term and certainly made it easier for me to retain this seat for the Free National Movement. Mr. Deputy Speaker, before I turn to my portfolio, I would like to make 2 requests in this chamber on behalf of my constituents. The first request goes to my cabinet colleague, the Minister of Education and member for South Beach. Please, 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 do whatever you can, Mr. Minister, to ensure that the air conditioning units are properly maintained at the Uriah McPhee Primary School, so that the youngest and most vulnerable members of Freetown do not go days and days without school or go to school for just a half day as they have done for so many days in the past. Better yet, Mr. Speaker, the people of Freetown asked the minister to build a new primary school on Kemp Road in the adjacent lot next to Uriah McPhee and then demolish the windowless 1970s experiment that has surely outlived its usefulness. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the people of Freetown have asked me to remind the Minister of Education that Kemp Road is where he once lived, and Kemp Road should figure prominently in his ambitious school expansion plans. Mr. Speaker, my second request goes to my cabinet colleague, the Minister of Health, and member for Elizabeth, who delivered one of the most detailed, fact-filled, eye-opening, fascinating presentations about the state of the healthcare system in this country. His report to this House yesterday was both shocking and revealing as it relates to the health of this nation and the total mismanagement and abuse of the healthcare system that took place under the previous administration. However, while I now fully understand the enormous task that you face in getting an abused, battered, sick healthcare system back on track, please, please, please do whatever you can to renovate and modernize and extend the operating hours of the Anstown Clinic. Mr. Minister, that clinic has been neglected for years, is in a deplorable state, and only opens Monday to Friday from 9 to 5. The great people of Freetown graciously ask that funds be allocated to renovate and refurbish, or demolish and rebuild the Anstown Clinic, and to extend the operating hours to 24/7, 365, like Superwash, since they do get sick and do need medical attention at night and on weekends. Exactly 1 month ago today, I was sworn in as the Minister of Tourism and Aviation with responsibility for Bahamas Air. Mr. Speaker, this is a fascinating and incredibly interesting portfolio, and I am delighted and honored to have been chosen to take on this awesome responsibility. As the member for Bain and Grantstown and Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism so eloquently stated yesterday, tourism either directly or indirectly employs 70% of the workforce in this country. Mr. Speaker, tourism is the Bahamas' primary industry, not just in terms of the money that it makes, but also in terms of the jobs that it creates, the investment dollars that it brings in, the linkages and the stimulation provided to other sectors of the economy, and the contribution made to the level of development of the Bahamas and the quality of life enjoyed by its citizens. Its success is pivotal to the economic strength and growth of the country. Mr. Deputy Speaker, globally, tourism employs 1 in every 10 persons on the planet, contributes 10% of the world's GDP, and contributes 1.4 trillion to the global economy. Most of the world's 200-plus countries now recognize the potential of tourism as a major income generator to fund the development of national economies, to lift huge segments of the population from poverty, to increase standards of living, and to sustain the economic future of nations. For this reason, with very few exceptions, the nations of the world have all turned their focus to capitalizing on the power of tourism. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in 2016, international tourism arrivals in the world topped out at 1.2 billion and contributed over 1.4 trillion to the global economy. I repeat, in 2016, 1.2 billion traveled internationally for tourism purposes. In fact, international tourism has steadily grown at a rate of 4% for 7 consecutive years, reaching 1.2 billion in 2016. Globally, the forecast for tourism is positive, with a strong emphasis given to tourism. In nations across the globe, the competition for the tourism business is set to become even more fierce with every passing year. And with more and more countries recognizing the huge potential that tourism provides for their economies, there will inevitably be greater jockeying for a greater share of the world tourism pie. Mr. Speaker, the scenario I've just painted is the global climate in which our country must compete to remain a viable tourism destination. This is the arena in which we must work hard and smart to preserve our relevancy as a country that depends heavily on the tourism business. Mr. Speaker, let us now take a quick look at the state of tourism in the Bahamas. In 2016, Overall tourism arrivals in the Bahamas increased by 2.5% to 6.2 million visitors, whereas globally tourism grew at a pace of 4%. So we're not doing as well as the world. From 2015 to 2016, year over year, we saw a 3.2% increase in sea arrivals to 4.69 million people. Air arrivals or stopovers, however, decreased by an unacceptable 0.2% to 1.48 million. This number was greatly impacted by Hurricane Matthew and the loss of international airlift to Grand Bahama Island, in particular, which declined by 14.8%. Even without the impact of Hurricane Matthew, stopover visitor arrivals to the Bahamas have not grown in 20 years. In 1996, Mr. Deputy Speaker, 1.63 million stopovers came to the Bahamas compared to 1.48 million last year. This flat rate of growth of stopover visitors' arrivals is cause for even more concern when compared to our regional neighbors like Jamaica, Cuba, and the Dominican Republic, all of which have experienced growth north of 4%, and in the case of Cuba, 7.6%. Mr. Speaker, I am a businessman. My focus is, of course, the bottom line, the numbers, because when calculated correctly, the numbers never lie. As we look at the big picture of our tourism industry, we must be prepared to acknowledge the reality for what it is. Tourism in the Bahamas is at a standstill. We have simply not grown. There may be many factors causing this, but recognizing the fierce competition globally in the field of tourism, it is a national imperative that we overhaul the tourism industry and put it on track to fast growth. Mr. Speaker, while I am a realist, I must tell you I have a lot of faith in the people of the Bahamas. I have full confidence that all the stakeholders of our industry, from the CEO of our multinational resorts to the water sports operator on our beach, to those who work in the front of the house and those that work in the back of the house, I have full confidence that everyone working in tourism will do their part to improve the experience we deliver to our guests. Considering the competitiveness of this industry, it is imperative that we provide the level of customer service that our brand demands and our visitors expect to ensure that we continue to maintain our competitive edge. Further, the Bahamas is regarded as a high-end or expensive destination to visit, which makes it even more important that we deliver value for money. That means consistent high-quality service and a consistent high-quality vacation experience for our guests, something I am not presently satisfied that we are delivering. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we must all work harder and more efficiently to regain that place of pride. And I'd like to use this opportunity to issue a national call to Bahamians working in tourism to take up the collective challenge to truly make tourism better in the Bahamas. Mr. Speaker, the people of the Bahamas can count on my leadership as I work closely with the experienced team at the Ministry of Tourism and our key stakeholders to overhaul our #1 industry. The Ministry of Tourism has set some clear, simple goals to achieve over the next 5 years. Our #1 goal is to increase revenue from tourism. Currently, of the 6.2 million visitors that come to our shores annually, 75% are cruise ship visitors and 25% are stopover visitors. If we compare the expenditure of the cruise visitor versus the stopover visitor, we see a vast difference. The average cruise visitor spends $84, whereas the average stopover visitor spends $1,384. So even though a whopping 4.7 million cruise visitors came to our shores in 2016, they spent only $400 million, as opposed to the $2 billion spent by the far lower 1.48 million stopover visitors. To achieve the overall goal of increasing revenue in tourism, we must not only grow the number of stopover visitors, but we must provide stimulating, exciting, and interesting things for them to do, and which causes them to want to spend more of their vacation dollars here in the Bahamas. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I believe that we spend a huge amount of energy and money attracting visitors to our country, but yet when they get here, we have a ground game that is sorely lacking. Once the visitor puts foot on our soil, we abandon them. They don't know where to go, they don't know what to do, and therefore I feel we are leaving money on the table. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we must and we will in conjunction with the private sector, develop a whole host of additional interesting and experiential activities in which more visitors can immerse themselves in the history and culture of this country and engage in a meaningful exchange with our people, especially our young people, which of course is the greatest asset that we have to offer. The greater our success in getting people to participate in these activities, the greater the amount of the dollar spent here. That will remain here, and the greater the chance that those dollars that remain here will flow down to those areas most in need. Other countries in our region have managed to capitalize on increasing spend from cruise passengers and crew, who make up a large shopping component of cruise ships as well, and we must continue to find innovative ways to do the same. So over the next 5 years, as we work to appreciably grow the number of stopover visitors, with the resultant increase in revenue, we will be able to accomplish our other related major goal, which is to increase the GDP and to increase the number of jobs and entrepreneurial opportunities for Bahamians. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in tandem with working towards increasing revenue, we will focus our attention on reducing expenditure by the Ministry of Tourism. Despite a valiant effort to prevent cutbacks, the new reality is that we have been charged with cutting the expenditures of the operation of the ministry. In this upcoming budgetary period, expenditures by the tourism component of the Ministry of Tourism and Aviation have been cut from $64 million projected in 2017 to $51 million in 2018, which represents a reduction of some $13 million or 20%. In this regard, immediately upon assuming my post as Minister of Tourism, one of the very first steps I took was to commence the review of all tourism-related heads of agreement, contracts, and plans for future events to ensure that the people of the Bahamas are getting maximum value for money spent. Mr. Speaker, my ministry will not hesitate to make amendments where necessary, and Mr. Deputy Speaker, if we are not realizing a reasonable return on the concession that we are granting, then those subsidies will be ceased or significantly curtailed. In addition, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I have ordered the review of all contracts entered into by the ministry for the delivery of services to the ministry. This process is ongoing, and to date, I have stumbled across one that is worth mentioning in this House. There is one individual that is being paid $33,333.33 each month, or $400,000 per year, more than the combined salaries of 7 cabinet ministers and 1 parliamentary secretary, for consulting services as it relates to cultural tourism. Mr. Deputy Speaker, there is a contract with this individual that was drawn up, although I have yet to see a signed copy, in October 2014. And that person has been paid over $1 million under that contract to consult on cultural tourism. I don't know, Mr. Deputy Speaker, but this smells fishy. When asked what this individual produced for the $1 million spent, senior executives of the ministry all agreed that whatever he did produce, it was not, in their professional opinion, worth $1 million. When asked to opine on whether this amount was outrageous, they all agreed that it was. When asked to opine on whether the monthly payment should be continued, they all agreed that it should not. When asked to shed some light on who ordered that these payments be made, they either had no knowledge of the terms of the contract, and those that did said the instruction to pay the outrageous amount came from the very top of the former administration. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I have ordered that no further amounts be paid to that individual until I am clear in my mind that this expense is justified. But I want to put all vendors of the Ministry of Tourism on notice that moving forward.
Point. Chair recognizes the member for Angleston.
No, I think, I was wondering if the member, because
Why do you rise?
I've
What's your
asked-
point of
I've asked the member if he would.
point of order?
Do you mind yielding? I want to ask a question about that. Do you mind yielding?
What's the point?
The point is, my point of order is that I'm concerned that
I haven't
because-
yielded. I haven't yielded.
No, I'm speaking.
Chair, the chair recognizes
Okay.
Angleston.
It's not always all about you. It's about the speaker right now.
No, I know.
Speaker,
You're telling me what.
my concern is that the member is giving partial information which is misleading the public. What I would do, Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask the member if he would kindly set out the task performed by this person, because I'm told that the Free National Movement used to bring him in to do the CACIC Awards at high cost, and that the government made a decision to engage him. Yes, I know who this is. The government made a decision to engage him to do a number of things, including help develop a cultural policy for the National Development Plan and help us develop a national theater. He's a distinguished Bahamian.
But sir, but Angleston, the chair recognizes Carmichael.
Speaker, with the greatest respect, sir, this is not a point of order.
I was just
As-
about Carmichael to
I'm
to raise that point with
Thank
the, with
you, sir, because
Angleston.
where we're going is an interruption of this member's first maiden speech in here in this place. The honorable member has been here. He's going on 20 years in here.
Yes.
She ought to give him an opportunity to make his contribution, and then at the end of the day, if she has some reasonable question, she can rebut him.
Yeah, thank you, Carmichael. Angleston, member for Angleston. Again, I know the speaker has spoken to this on several occasions. The chair haven't seen or heard any breaches of this honorable house with regards to the contribution of the member from Freetown, and therefore the chair will ask the speaker for Freetown to continue. Thank you, Angleston. Thank you.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I have ordered that no further amounts be paid to that individual until I'm clear in my mind that this expense is justified. But I want to put all vendors of the Ministry of Tourism on notice that moving forward in this area of cutbacks and belt tightening, no unnecessary expense will be authorized or incurred unless the goods and services are delivered to the satisfaction of the ministry. In addition, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Ministry of Tourism must review holistically whether doing business in the way it has done so in the past is really the way forward. Our approach of utilizing a significant number of tourist offices dotted around the world, which are all very expensive to maintain and staff, fails to take into consideration that the traveling public have changed the way they purchase their holidays. As we all know, many of us go online to research our travel options and then consequently purchase online. Well, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we need to adjust to that changing dynamic. We need to pull back on doing business the way we have always done business and invest more strategically in marketing to a potential customer using the ever-growing, ever more popular social media and online options. I was shocked to learn that the Ministry of Tourism has but one employee who deals with Bahamas.com, the primary online marketing tool of the country. Yet we employ many, many, many more people in the sales and marketing department using methodologies that have not changed in years. In summary, Mr. Speaker, moving forward, our goals for tourism are to increase revenue for all stakeholders within this sector, grow the number of stopover visitors, increase our country's GDP, increase the number of jobs and entrepreneurial opportunities for Bahamians, and reduce expenditure within the ministry. An enormous task, I agree, but one that I feel that I and my team are definitely ready to do. We will look to spend smarter and wiser to accomplish the goals that we have set out. Mr. Speaker, anyone who has a home will tell you, in maintaining the upkeep of their home, they pay special attention to that room in the house where the guests first enter, the front room or the living room. Every year, some 4 million cruise ship guests visit the Bahamas, and most of them are introduced to our destination for the first time as they enter through the gateway of Festival Place and make their way onto Bay Street, exploring farther west. Feedback from our cruise guests point to inadequate product offerings, not enough activities, closure of stores and by extension Bay Street by 5 p.m., a city devoid of life in the evenings, the peddling of drugs, harassment, crime, poor service, and the list goes on. It is not a good picture. We have an option before us, Mr. Deputy Speaker. We can bury our proverbial heads in the sand or take a stand and create an environment and a welcome to this beautiful country that we all can be proud of. An editorial in the Tribune, dated the 30th of May 2017, bluntly summed up the current situation, and I quote, "Once a thriving mini metropolis with dining and clubs, high-end shops, and financial fervor, the city of Nassau, the heartbeat of the nation, is a sad and dirty shadow of its former self. In a window next to where a $60,000 crystal table once stood, there is now a sign offering 3 T-shirts for $9.99. Where Mademoiselle's headquarters once buzzed as the house of fashion, a second-story wooden balcony railing is rotting. Just off the main street, derelict buildings stare back with blown-out windows and roofs, glaring eyesores. The magnificent mahogany and olive streets that dotted the street are struggling to survive. There are remnants of Bay Street's beauty, the good bones of Nassau's historic architectural treasures, so frequently mentioned by my dear friend, the late Jackson Burnside III, are still there, but they are shrinking, replaced by large glass panes and concealed garish signs, end quote. Mr. Speaker, over the next 5 years, we will focus our energies on revitalizing Bay Street and downtown Nassau to bring about a capital city of which all Bahamians can be proud. We will move ahead with implementing some of the key recommendations of the Downtown Redevelopment Plan, which was formulated 10 years ago. In accordance with this plan, we will oversee the remaking of downtown Nassau into a residential city. People working and living in a city center brings dynamism and soul to that city. Other major infrastructural developments that must be carried out downtown will include the wholesale refurbishment of the Port of Nassau and Festival Place, the gateway to our city. Mr. Speaker, not only am I embarrassed by the state of Bay Street, I too am embarrassed by the state of the Port of Nassau. What our cruise ship passengers experience each and every day as they transition from their ships to Bay Street via the Port of Nassau is not something anyone in this House can be proud of. The place is tacky, poorly maintained, poorly supervised, and many a tourist entering this country for the first time by that port is confronted with a level of harassment and incivility that is not conducive to a place where tourism is our #1 industry. Myself, the member for Southern Shores in his capacity as the Minister of Transport, and the member for Bain and Grantstown in his capacity as Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism, all toured the facility a few weeks back and all emerged thinking that we must do something differently to improve the experience that the many millions of cruise ship passengers presently tolerate as they enter the city of Nassau. Given our limited resources, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I envision a public-private partnership similar to the one at the Lynden Pinling International Airport as the way forward to deal with this problem. Incorporated in any future plans will be the continued development of Festival Place as the storefront of our city. Its landscape will showcase the historic and unique features of the capital, its attractions, activities, food, music, and special events to ship crews and visitors. Right now, however, the failure of previous administrations to allocate scarce resources to this project has meant that many millions have been spent on Festival Place, but the project is not yet complete, and it is still not operating in the manner it was originally envisioned. Its completion must be incorporated into an overall plan for the redevelopment of the port, and its management and its relaunch must be entrusted into the hands of a NAD-type entity, staffed with professionals and equipped with resources that understand how to do these things. Mr. Deputy Speaker, driving on Bay Street east of Rawson Square, the city takes on a dismal, broken-down appearance that is embarrassing to all of us. In a few short years, working with stakeholders and partners, priority will be given to seeing that entire area transform. Starting from Woods Rogers Wharf, a boardwalk with gorgeous sea views will run all the way eastward to Armstrong Street, creating a dynamic 1-mile commercial and recreational space conducive to new retail, nightlife, and restaurant businesses, among other things. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the overhaul of the city of Nassau will entail major infrastructural development, but also interesting cultural retouches that will bring life and excitement to downtown. I have charged my team at the Ministry of Tourism to collaborate with key stakeholders to immediately begin putting in place enhancements to transform the overall ambiance of the city of Nassau. We are a country where creativity and talent are in abundance, so let's use it. We will put that creativity and talent on display in downtown Nassau. My team have some innovative and creative ideas, and we are looking to making these a reality in the short term while we work on permanent ideas and product offerings to keep Bahamians and visitors alike engaged, entertained, and inspired to return to the area again and again. The cruise ship industry is of immense importance to our economy. The cruise lines are in solid partnership with the Bahamas government. Each year they deliver approximately 4.5 million visitors to our shores. The maritime forecast is encouraging. Cruise lines are vested in the destination, owning private islands and keys, and investing in port development in Grand Bahama and Ocean Key, as well as other private islands and keys. By 2021, an additional 27 new ocean-going liners would have been introduced by all the lines: Norwegian, Royal Caribbean, Disney, Carnival, and MSC. Mr. Deputy Speaker, product revitalization is a national endeavor that calls for the collaboration of both public and private sector. Product revitalization presents a unique opportunity for entrepreneurs to step forward with their concepts for new dynamic product offerings. Visitors to the Bahamas generally and Nassau are starving for exciting things to do, see, and experience that are uniquely Bahamian. We need to keep in mind that millennials, who now comprise a significant percentage of travelers, value experiences above all else and are not concerned about paying for those experiences in their travels. They are seeking novel experiences that communicate the culture and heritage of the destinations they visit. For local investors, the good news is that this administration has committed to continuing with incentive legislation that assists our Bahamian entrepreneurs in becoming business owners, and will look at other ways that we can incentivize existing business owners as well. One of the stated goals of this administration is to increase Bahamian ownership of our economy, and tourism provides many opportunities for ownership at multiple levels. Mr. Speaker, I now turn my attention to Bahama. This $4 billion project, at its completion, will be the largest luxury resort complex in the entire Caribbean region. A stabilized Bahama will net numerous benefits for our economy: approximately 12% increase in our GDP in the first year, 5,500 direct jobs at full operation, a positive impact on our country's sovereign debt rating, gaming tax revenues, $45 million of direct tax collection annually from resort operations and NIB, an upgrade of the average daily rate for New Providence hotels, and much more. Mr. Speaker, Deputy Speaker, I cite these benefits to underscore the recognition of Bahama to our tourism product and our economy. With the opening of Bahama and its world-class hotel brands that fall under the umbrella of Bahama, namely the Grand Hyatt, currently open, SLS to open in October, Rosewood to open March next year, the luxury offering of our hotel offerings in New Providence will have more than doubled. However, we do want to caution all of our hotel operators that we do not want occupancy levels at Bahama to increase at the expense of other properties here in New Providence. We want to grow the overall stopover visitors to the island, not merely move them from one property to another. So significant and innovative marketing strategies must be deployed to ensure a win-win for the destination. We also recognize the rebranding and marketing that Atlantis has recently undertaken, that showcases Bahamian culture and talent, and recognizes that the most important brand to push is the Bahamas, and not one individual property. We will continue to work with Atlantis to ensure that there remains a great synergy with its brand and Bahama. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as I've mentioned earlier, increasing the numbers of stopover visitors to our destination is one of the key goals that my ministry has set for the country over the next 5 years. The growth of stopover arrivals is contingent upon having sufficient room inventory and on securing adequate airlift. As we maneuver to increased airlift, we need to keep in mind that air stopover growth is driven by growth in consumer demand, not by an increase in the number of airline seats. People will not travel to our country simply because there are more airline seats available. It does not work that way. Consumer demand for our destination is created by boosting awareness of our brand in the marketplace. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the past 12 to 18 months have proven that the ministry's sales and marketing team and its global communications operations have done a commendable job in keeping our brand before the consumer in our major markets. Most of their promotional efforts involve creating brand identity for our major family islands to the point where islands like Abaco, Exuma, Bimini, San Salvador, and others are becoming known destinations in their own right. Consumer demand for these islands is on the increase. Within the last year, we've seen the coming on stream of air service on Delta and American Airlines that connect islands like San Salvador, Eleuthera, and Abaco to major U.S. cities like Miami, Atlanta, and Charlotte. Effective July of this year, Elite Airlines will connect Newark, New Jersey, and Melbourne, Florida to Bimini. In August of 2016, we saw British Airways transition from a Boeing 767 to the larger Boeing 777 on its London Heathrow-Nassau flight. In November this year, a new stopover flight by Condor will connect Frankfurt, Germany to Nassau, giving our destination direct access to the world's fourth largest economy. Each year, Germans spend $81 billion on international travel, making Germany the world's third top tourism spender after China and the United States. Yeah, I know. But you're gone now, so it's my time. We will continue. That's all right. You sit small for a minute. We will continue to build on the past successes. Man, I know. We will continue to build on the past successes in securing inlet to accommodate the expansion in hotel rooms that will be brought about by the 2,500 rooms that will be added to our room inventory at the completion of Bahama and the reopening of the newly renovated Coral Towers at Atlantis. I note the vexing impediment of high ticket taxes and fees and the intense pressure by airport operators and border authorities to continually increase these costs. Mr. Deputy Speaker, our objective in this regard is to stimulate immediate growth to the economy of the country through planned promotional efforts in close collaboration with industry partners to create the opportunity over time to reduce high ticket taxes and fees, and thus make the destination more price competitive and thereby unleash its real growth potential. Unfortunately, we are confronted with the reality that taxes and fees, for example, to fly from Fort Lauderdale to Grand Bahama are at least $100 more, despite its proximity, than the taxes and fees to fly from Fort Lauderdale to Las Vegas. We must confront that stark reality, and if we are to remain competitive to the stopover visitor, we must fight vigorously all attempts to increase ticket taxes and fees any further and implement through targeted incentives ways for the stopover visitors to receive a rebate for some of these costs. Hotel licensing. Mr. Speaker, my ministry intends to carry out a number of innovative reforms in the process of licensing and enforcement of quality standards and best practices in our accommodation sector. The implementation of a first-rate business intelligence system will make the process of licensing properties and collection of fees a seamless one. Through technology, we will re-centralize the licensing process of properties throughout our far-flung archipelago, and allow individual properties to apply and pay online for their hotel license. I'm a little dismayed, however, at how long this project is taking. It has been ongoing for 3 years and cost the taxpayer well in excess of $500,000, but it is yet not operational. I hate stories like this because they rarely happen in the private sector, but seem to be prevalent in the public sector. Anyway, before I get carried away ranting on about the endless inefficiencies of the public sector, rest assured, Mr. Speaker, that this project will be completed and operational in short order. Mr. Speaker, accommodations are a major aspect of our tourism product, and therefore we will work much more closely with our hoteliers in enforcing compliance with quality standards. We will regularize and appropriately tax the many vacation rental properties that have come on stream throughout our islands. We are mindful that these vacation rental properties are typically small businesses and will not want to overly burden them with rules and regulations. However, we do feel that they should contribute in some small way to the maintenance and overall upkeep of the destination. And so their guests will be required to pay a small resort-type fee, hopefully levied online by the online booking website and remitted directly to the Treasury. When recently in New York, I signed and entered into a memorandum of understanding with Airbnb. This is, of course, the largest and fastest growing online vacation home rental website, and we in the Ministry of Tourism felt that it was prudent to enter into a relationship with them to govern the terms upon which persons could rent their vacation homes in the Bahamas via that website. Airbnb will ensure that whoever lists their vacation home in the Bahamas is in compliance with our local rules and regulations, and they will collect any government taxes and fees associated with that rental and remit them directly to the Treasury. However, they will not collect VAT. And if we want to collect taxes on such rentals, as I think we should, a new resort-type fee will have to be considered and introduced. At that time, we will convert our relatively unbinding MOU into a full-fledged agreement and thereby regulate and tax this rapidly growing and currently unregulated sector. For those who wish to rent more than one room and operate a small number of rooms, we do encourage local entrepreneurs to capitalize on the incentives that this administration will make available to them to enter the hotel sector. We will continue the policy of reserving fishing lodges under 20 rooms for local ownership exclusively. Mr. Speaker, Deputy Speaker, you get it right, one time. Sales and marketing are critical to the success of our business. We have in the network of Bahamas tourist offices across the United States, Canada, and Europe, a team of tourism executives who have worked very hard at promoting our destination. However, Mr. Speaker, as mentioned earlier, the numbers of stopover visitors have not grown, and the ministry will ensure, therefore, that our brightest officers are on the ground in these countries and that they have the resources they need to strengthen and forge new relationships with travel distributors and direct consumer audiences to create top-of-the-mind awareness of our destination that will result in more travel decisions being made in favor of our destination and more heads in beds. Working in tandem with our sales and marketing team abroad are tourism executives here in the destination, Nassau, in our National Planning and Events Department, whose mandate is to ensure the growth of quality events, stress quality events in our destination that visitors and Bahamians alike want to attend. We will bring renewed focus to growing all of our niche markets: weddings and honeymoons, boating and fishing, private aviation, meetings, conferences and incentives, religious and sports tourism. And we will seek to establish new niche markets by scanning our major markets for new areas of growing interest. Mr. Deputy Speaker, maintaining ongoing communication with our consumer audience is pivotal to our growth as a destination. In addition to employing traditional print, TV, radio, billboard media, and our global communications team will redouble their efforts to capitalize on the potential of an all-digital platforms to communicate the message to the world that the Bahamas is not only the best warm weather beach destination to vacation, but also a country that is steeped in culture, history, and culinary offerings, to name a few. We will give greater priority to engaging social media influencers who have millions of followers. Our aim is to maximize the digital footprint of the islands of the Bahamas. The relaunch of Grand Bahama is critical to the overall success of our economy. The long ailing economy of Grand Bahama was hard hit by Hurricane Matthew in October of 2016. As a result of the devastation of Hurricane Matthew, Grand Bahama lost 50% of its room inventory and much of its air service to our major markets. My ministry has a strategic plan for Grand Bahama that will yield quantifiable results. Our first order of business is to work with our tourism professionals to establish a brand identity for Grand Bahama in the marketplace. Grand Bahama encompasses 3 distinct destinations, and herein lies its greatest potential. Working with our key industry partners, we will establish an identity for each of Grand Bahama's 3 destinations. Freeport and Lucaya will be marketed as a sports mecca, West Grand Bahama as an ecotourism sanctuary, and East Grand Bahama as a dynamic cultural village for the flourishing of the arts and artisanal craft. Artisanal, how you say that? Artisanal craft. We'll also work towards enacting legislation that will facilitate the transformation of Grand Bahama into a destination favored for international film production. I just put that in your hands, man. I ain't even got to worry about it. Family Islands. The Bahamas Ministry of Tourism actively promotes our 16 major island destinations, from Grand Bahama in the north to Mayaguana in the south, and each island in between offering a distinctly different vacation experience. The Family Islands are the future of the Bahamas. They have preserved their pristine, tranquil quality that the weary of the world, or those seeking a truly tropical island experience, or wanting to get away from it all, are seeking. In developing our Family Islands, we will be careful to preserve the off-the-beaten-path ambiance that is attractive to so many travelers. In the year ahead, the Ministry of Tourism will continue to work with stakeholders on each of the major family islands to enhance those unique experiences for which their respective destinations are known. Each major island will be strategically matched with the appropriate consumer audience and thereby solidify distinct niche markets for each island. Anagua, with its expanses of marshes and one of the largest colonies of West Indian flamingos and breeding grounds for a wide variety of birds, will be earmarked as a birdwatcher's sanctuary. Andros, with its miles of fishing flats and the world's third largest barrier reef, will be marketed as a destination for fly fishing and scuba diving. The southeast islands of Acklins and Crooked Island and Mayaguana will be positioned as destinations where visitors can completely unplug, unwind, take a fishing expedition, and commune with nature. The Ministry of Tourism will provide training, promotional and marketing tools, and technical support. A bird-watching training program has recently been completed in Anagua. A training program will be launched by BTVI for fishing guides throughout the Bahamas, and within a year's time, all fishing guides will be required to acquire certification to operate. The tourism development plan for the Family Islands will create unique opportunities for local entrepreneurs who will be supported in their ventures by a full package of incentives created to ensure their success. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I am convinced that with the strategies that we intend to employ in collaboration with our key stakeholders, within a matter of 2 to 3 years, we will begin to see a renaissance in our #1 industry, and that within 5 years, we will be on course to achieve our goals of increased revenue, higher numbers of stopover visitors, an elevated GDP, greater Bahamian ownership of our economy, and decreased expenditure. Mr. Speaker, Deputy Speaker, included in my portfolio is the responsibility for the Gaming Board. Gaming is a highly charged topic of discussion in this country. There is still an enormous amount of ill feeling by a large sector of the electorate who feels that their wishes as it relates to gaming were ignored by the previous government after the referendum or opinion poll did not go their way. For better or for worse, the number houses have been legalized and regularized, and there are 7 such number houses currently in operation. The previous government saw fit to place a moratorium on the proliferation of number houses, and that policy will be reviewed and evaluated by this government to see if that is in the best interest of the sector. Obviously, there was an explosion in the number of number houses before the sector was legalized and regulated in 2014. But I've been reliably informed that the number of gaming agencies and premises have declined from 635 prior to the Act to approximately 400 today. Gaming exacts an enormous toll on the financial well-being of the local population, and the government is mindful that some communities, especially in the Family Islands, have been devastated by the widespread engagement of this pastime. While there's been a substantial reduction in the number of number house premises, there has been an enormous proliferation in the types of products that the number houses have to offer. It seems that you can bet on some number falling at least once or twice an hour, 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year. Mr. Deputy Speaker, while it is only normal for a business engaged in this business to want to grow their business, we in the government must ask ourselves if this is in the best interest of the Bahamian people to allow this to grow unabated. There is clearly a social cost to people playing numbers, and typically much of that cost has to be borne by the state. In this regard, this government will want to know if sufficient taxes are being collected from the gaming sector to cover that cost, and that sufficient controls are being enforced by the number houses to ensure that gaming is being used as a fun pastime as opposed to a way of life. We do not want large sectors of our population to gamble away all their weekly earnings and life savings and then turn around to the government and say, "Help me." The gaming sector is projected to generate approximately $21 million in tax revenue for the year ended the 30th of June 2017. 15 million of that amount comes from the number houses, and 6 million comes from the 4 hotel casinos. The number houses pay a flat tax of 11% of their gross revenues, So that means that the number houses are projected to take in approximately $135 million in revenue in the current year. The gaming board takes off $6 million from the $21 million in tax revenue generated from the gaming industry, which it in turn uses to fund its operations. The gaming board operated profitably up until this year, but just before the general election, there was an explosion in the number of positions that were created, and now the gaming board is projected to make a loss for 2018. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in my capacity as minister with responsibility for the gaming board, and in conjunction with the new members of the gaming board that are about to be appointed, we will review these decisions and determine if they were made in the best interest of the gaming board or in the best interest of the PLP. There are currently over 180 employees of the gaming board to provide oversight to 7 number houses and 4 hotel casinos, of which 2 of those hotel casinos are barely operational. Much of the oversight can be provided online using the technology purposefully put in place to allow such oversight, but I don't want to prejudge my conclusions. I'm still in wait-and-see mode and will report back later. Aviation. I now turn my budget address to the aviation sector. A strategic move by this government in the allocation of ministerial portfolios was to place tourism and aviation within the same ministry. As a nation of islands, with connectivity is very important, the transport of goods, services, and people through the archipelago in a safe and expedient manner is essential. When you couple that with the fact that our #1 industry is tourism, it is evident that tourism and aviation are a good fit. The aviation-related government agencies include the Bahamas Civil Aviation Authority, the Bahamas Air Navigational Services Department, the Airport Authority, the Nassau Airport Development Company, Nassau Flight Services, and Bahamas Air. Mr. Speaker, what is noteworthy about these agencies, with the possible exception of NAD, which is owned by the Airport Authority but managed by a private sector company, is that all of these require funding from the Consolidated Fund. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the aviation sector is highly regulated and extremely capital intensive. Ensuring that we have a robust and independent and well-managed safety oversight regime is critical to the smooth operation of the sector. And more often than not, a foreign, usually American, agency is on the ground checking that our system of checks and balances is being rigidly enforced and rigidly adhered to. While I accept that it is the role of a state to provide safety oversight in the aviation sector, the government shall, to the extent possible, change the paradigm in the operation of Bahamas Air, Nassau Flight Services, and to a lesser extent the Airport Authority. It's generally accepted that commercial enterprises are better managed by private sector companies, and certainly where possible, we intend to explore these possibilities with the aforementioned entities. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Bahamas is a signatory to the Chicago Convention of the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, since 1975, has agreed to enforce ICAO's mandate and to work on a continuous basis to ensure safety and security in the aviation sector. The Bahamas Civil Aviation Authority is mandated by the convention to effectively carry out a proper safety oversight and regulatory program in compliance with international standards and recommended practices. Therefore, it's important that the BCAA train technical and administrative staff to a level that is higher than the industry for which it provides safety/security oversight. The exception is that the BCAA follows the mandated and formulated training programs articulated and routinely expanded upon by ICAO based on evolving safety and security initiatives to maintain a safe aviation sector. As a condition of being a member of ICAO, the Bahamas is subject to safety oversight audits by that organization. In this regard, a very important audit is scheduled for October of this year. I'm advised that the authority is presently engaged in preparatory work in anticipation of this very important audit. Mr. Deputy Speaker, just last week, the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, visited the authority as a follow-up to an international aviation safety assessment conducted by the FAA earlier this year. The assessment had not gone well, and failure to correct 100% of the deficiencies that were found by the time of the FAA's return last week would have led to a downgrade of the safety of our aviation sector as it was once done back in 2001.
Point, Member for Angliston.
I have knowledge of this, and I think the member is misleading this parliament to say that. And I can tell you that, first of all, I'm surprised that he would say something like that in the public domain so casually, Mr. Speaker. But the facts are, Mr. Speaker, that there have been several audits from 2011.
Speaker, I'm just,
Right. Right,
How's that?
This is the you stand up,
right,
you speak to the rule,
and
and
you,
you sit.
right.
State your point and you sit. This member is the member, she and Cat Island are the members, and this the most senior members in this place now.
Yes.
They ought to, they
You're the
know
third
the rules.
senior member. No, you're the third senior member.
Carmichael is on his feet,
They've
Angliston.
been in this place longer than anyone else here. They know the rules. It is wrong for the member to do what she's doing. Speaker, it is wrong. She's aware of the rules. She's not complied with them. And Mr. Speaker, I ask you to please protect this member from speaking for the first time.
Point taken, Carmichael. Angliston, stand, sorry.
I thought you told me to sit.
No, I was
Oh, okay.
asking you to just listen for a second. Your point of order was that the member
Is-
was misleading the House,
Yes, that's the point of order.
and you were about to expand on his
About to
point.
expand on that. What I was
Um,
saying was that
but-
the, sorry.
But one second. But I would just caution you, member, that your point of order, it isn't an opportunity for you to go in depth to rebut his point.
Yes.
So you could make your point
Yes.
and address it
Okay.
swiftly, and then you will have your opportunity to address the point.
Okay, thank you.
But I think member Van Angliston, I think you've already made your point. And the chair acknowledges that point, and then I would simply ask of the member for Freetown, caution the member for Freetown. I say from that member for Angliston, I would allow Freetown to continue
I-
his contribution.
So, I thought you were allowing me, Mr. Deputy, I thought.
Failure
you were
to correct
going
100%
The chair recognizes the member for Freetown, Angliston.
And they were found by the time the assessment had not gone well, and failure to correct 100% of the deficiencies that were found by the time of the FFA's return visit last week would have led to a downgrade of the safety of our aviation sector as it was once done back in 2001. A downgrade would not be crippling to our aviation sector, but it would be embarrassing. And as mentioned, if we did not correct 100% of the deficiencies, we would be downgraded, no exceptions. While I don't wish to comment on the outcome of that assessment, now it is clear to me that the Director General of the BCAA, Captain Charles Bennaby, clearly appreciates the gravity of the Bahamas being in a state of readiness to undergo audits at any time, and he brings a latent focus to the authority. And you appointed him, thank you. The government is fully cognizant of the importance of airlift for intra-island travel for residents, as well as to undergird our tourism industry, bringing in stopover visitors, and we will provide the BCAA with the resources it requires to do its work unimpeded. We have no choice. The government will provide, therefore, the Bahamas Civil Aviation Authority with a budget of approximately $17 million for the 2017-18 fiscal year. Of that amount, $6.4 million is earmarked for the Civil Aviation Authority, of which almost 50% is for salaries, and the balance of $10.7 million is earmarked for the Air Traffic Services Department. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the airspace of the Bahamas is not controlled nor managed by this country. We have ceded that right to the FAA, and up until this year, a crazy situation existed where the Americans charged Bahamian aircraft to fly through Bahamian airspace, yet they did not charge American aircraft 1 penny to fly through the same airspace. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we are the only country in this region that does not control its own airspace. Haiti, the Dominican Republic, even Turks and Caicos control their own airspace. Why is this important, Mr. Deputy Speaker? Well, first and foremost, after 44 years of being an independent country, we should control our own airspace. Second, there are significant overflight fees that we are giving up by not taking control of this airspace. The technical people at the BCAA conservatively estimate that we should earn in excess of $50 million by assuming control of our airspace. Mr. Deputy Speaker, that is $50 million.
That's the one you like.
Yes. There are costs associated with managing our own airspace, but the FAA have offered to provide that service, for approximately $20 million per year. $50 million, less $20 million. Well, Mr. Speaker, please allow your members to do the math. Also, by managing our own airspace, we will create high-paying technical jobs, especially as we begin to transition from an environment where the Americans control our airspace to one where we control it. You agree with that? Mr. Deputy Speaker, I have made it Mr. Deputy Speaker, I have made this an absolute priority of my ministry. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I've made this an absolute priority of my ministry, given our desperate financial situation. And I am advised that we should take control of our airspace by the second quarter of next year at the very latest. And certainly before we come back to this House to debate next year's budget. What'd you do? Anyway, Mr. Deputy Speaker, Nassau Flight Services Limited is a wholly owned Nassau Flight. We own the Nassau Flight. You won that one. Okay, we'll give you that one. Nassau Flight Services Limited is a wholly owned government limited company and is controlled by a chairman and the board of directors whose positions are appointed annually by the cabinet. The company currently operates the following locations. This is Nassau Flight Services. Lynden Pinling International Airport, Exuma International Airport, San Salvador International Airport. Nassau Flight Services provides ground handling managerial services to 12 scheduled airlines and numerous charter airlines. Mr. Deputy Speaker, during the F&M's last term in office, a decision was made to pursue the privatization of Nassau Flight Services. However, because the company's financials were never current, this did not materialize. I am told that the financial statements are now up to date. It is to be noted that for the past 6 years, Nassau Flight Services sustained losses due to various factors, and thus the government has had to provide this company approximately $2 million every year in subventions in order to meet its obligations. Mr. Deputy Speaker, Nassau Flight Services has revenues Nassau Flight Services has revenues that are less than $7 million. And my business background tells me that this size of business is too small to be effectively and properly managed and operated by the state. I therefore agree with the previous F&M administration that this company should be privatized and will order the new board to prepare that company for that exercise. Nassau Airport Development Company. No. I don't. Mr. Deputy, we got to make sound decisions, okay? You can't run huge deficits. We ain't firing them. We ain't say nothing about firing. That's what you say. We ain't say that. That's what you say. Mr. Deputy Speaker, NAD is the entity that leases the Lynden Pinling International Airport from the Airport Authority. It is the entity that borrowed over $400 million to build the new airport. NAD receives no funding from the state, and it finances all of its operations and debt service from its revenues. However, Mr. Deputy Speaker, due to the deteriorating state of the Bahamian economy and a corresponding increase in the sovereign risk of operating in the Bahamas, the rating agency Fitch, that grades the debt of NAD, determined in February of this year that NAD's senior secured notes should be downgraded from BBB minus to BB plus. That downgrade word again seems to be indicative of something in the past. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as a result of the downgrade, NAD must now place an additional $19 million in its debt reserve fund to give its lenders further comfort that it can repay its loan while it operates in a financially challenged Bahamas. Until those funds are placed in that debt reserve fund, NAD cannot do any capital upgrades and is severely restricted on how and on what it can spend money until it recovers its investment grade rating. This is a problem, Mr. Deputy Speaker, which must be rectified as quickly as possible. As a result, NAD will, effective December 2017, increase on U.S./international passengers its passenger facility charge by $4 and its passenger processing fee by $4. for a total of $8. Yes, ma'am.
Your point of order.
The member knows that is not true. That increase is in the normal course of the desires of NAD, and he knows it. And he should not try and connect dots that do not exist and to misrepresent the case here. It's not true. He misrepresented on the FIR because the PLP was the only one who had the guts to stand up and
The point.
The member is not speaking
The truth.
on the fees, Mr. Speaker.
Well, all right.
The member is not speaking truth.
Calling me a liar?
All right, member. I understand. Thank you.
I am speaking the truth because that's what they told me. Okay? I mean, I don't, that's what they told me.
Freetown, you can continue your
On
contribution,
domestic
please.
passengers, it will increase its passenger facility charge by $2.50. These increases will hurt tourism since, once again, it will increase the cost of flying into the Bahamas. I want the Bahamian people to know that when your economy deteriorates into the terrible condition that it is, the ramifications and the increase in borrowing costs result in greater fees being pushed down on the backs of ordinary Bahamians. That's true. That is true. And I am telling the truth. In addition, Mr. Deputy Speaker, you will have read, and it's true. In addition, Mr. Deputy Speaker, you will have read in a local daily. Man,
Member for Freetown. One
In
sec.
addition-
Member for Freetown.
Sorry.
Every member would have their opportunity to give their contribution. We try to be as lenient and we understand the dynamics of the House. But I'm going to caution all members to just allow the contributing member to give his contribution, and your time will come. The chair recognizes again the member for Freetown.
thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. In addition, Mr. Deputy Speaker, you will have read in a local daily that this government, upon assuming office, saw fit to summarily dismiss the Board of NAD because of its treatment of the amounts owed by a tenant in the LPIA. Mr. Deputy Speaker, there is a large tenant who operated 5 stores in LPIA. How she got 5 stores in the first place is mind-boggling to me and reeks of an all-for-me baby policy adopted by someone some time ago. 6? Okay. Anyway, Mr. Deputy Speaker, as soon as the government changed in 2012, this...
I'm in talk for them. We talk about our business. Bahamian people's business. It's Bahamian people's business. Nothing to do with Solomon.
Freetown, continue your contribution, please.
Anyway, Mr. Deputy Speaker, as soon as the government changed in 2012, this tenant stopped paying rent. And by the end of December 2016, owed NAD $3.3 million. I am told that every effort that was made by NAD to collect this money was rebuffed by direct intervention by the political directorate, telling NAD to back off and stand down.
Chair recognizes Angliston.
What's
What's the point again, ma'am?
Member Freetown is going to learn that 5 years is a long time, and these things are going to come back.
Your point.
The point of order is I want the member, because I was the minister, and I want him to tell this parliament who he is speaking about when he says directives were given. Because I want him to say in this parliament who gave, he's saying the political directorate gave directions.
It wasn't you.
No, no. You got to make, no. You make sure you indicate to this parliament what you are saying.
You're speaking,
Sorry, Mr. Speaker. Yes, sorry, Mr. Deputy. The member must indicate to this parliament who he is talking about. I want him to put on the record and to prove and to establish who he is referring to, Mr. Speaker.
the chair, yes, Angliston. The chair recognizes Freetown. I think you can continue and hopefully satisfy the member. The member for Freetown has the floor, Angliston.
Maybe someone can explain why this receivable was allowed to grow to such an enormous amount without this tenant being evicted.
The member for Freetown has, you made,
I was the minister responsible. He said there was a political director, and I would like him to say...
Mr. Angliston, please. Yield the seat. I am the member for the member for Freetown is going to finish his presentation, Angliston. And as I indicated, if you allow him to finish his presentation, you may very well get your answer. The chair, no, Mr. I did not. I don't need two members. Freetown, I'm the member for.
Deputy, what is going on in this parliament,
Miss,
man? Throwing as much mud and innuendo and slack talk as you want against Bahamians in this place or outside this place? I'm asking the member, Mr. Deputy, if he can be specific. He's saying that that there was political, how did he put it? Political directive. I was the minister responsible, and I am not going to allow that to stay on the record of this parliament.
All right, the member for Freetown made a statement. The member for the chair is speaking now. The chair is speaking now, Cat Island. The member for Freetown made a statement that certain information was given to a particular parties. The chair, Cat Island, the chair is speaking. The chair is speaking. The member for Freetown gave information that, or made a statement that he heard that directions were given from various politicians, I think the term was. And therefore, I don't see, the chair does not see where, or I didn't hear any names called, any specific departments or any particular. This is a house, and the speaker, the chair is going to rule that the chair sees nothing wrong and no breach made by Freetown. And the chair is going to allow Freetown to continue and finish his contribution. That the chair is going to let Freetown finish his contribution. The chair recognizes Cat Island.
Ask one question. So it'll be parliamentary for me to say in this house what I may hear about anyone or any place, and that will be okay. And continue. Because I've heard a lot of things about a lot of people, just as they would have heard a lot of things about me, maybe.
Well,
Is it proper for me just to say, because I could say right now here a lot of things, even about you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Would that be proper? It's not proper. Because there are a lot of scurrilous things that we hear about each other.
Cat Island.
And in this instance, he's heard something. He's suggesting abuse of power, and he's be able to say it.
I think Cat Island, I think.
What do you say?
I got
okay?
Cat Island. You are merely, Cat Island, you are merely repeating what the member of Angliston said. The chair has already made a ruling. Having heard the statements from Freetown, the chair is going to allow Freetown to finish its contribution. I see no breaches. You will have your opportunity to rebut in your time. The chair recognizes again the member for Freetown.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. For 1 minute. Oh. Maybe someone can explain to this House why this receivable was allowed to grow to such an enormous amount without this tenant being evicted. But I fear this is another case of connected people being granted special favors. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, the story gets worse. The tenant, fearing that the government may be changing, decided to approach the board of NAD and negotiated a deal where NAD would write off $1.2 million of her receivable and allow her to repay the remaining balance over time if she would simply give up one store. The deal was signed on the 3rd of March 2017, a mere 2 months before the general election, and she is currently abiding by the terms of that agreement. However, so it's $3.3 million. They wrote off $1.2 million. However, this F&M government takes grave exception to this tenant because of well-known connections, being allowed to not pay her rent for 5 years, and then having $1.2 million of her outstanding rent simply written off by the board for no apparent reason. This board, in the view of this government, acted improperly, conveying and condoning special favors to persons who are not deserving of such, and therefore they were summarily dismissed. The government will investigate the legality of the agreement that was drawn up with the view to having it canceled. If it is found that it cannot be canceled, I will warn that tenant, you better stay current, or we will allow NAD to do what it needs to do, and what it was never allowed to do. Bahamas Air. The national flag carrier has lost lots of money for many, many years. And the question that we must ponder here today is what to do. Continue to have the taxpayer eat all the losses, or change the way we do business. I've gone on record stating that I think Bahamas Air should exit the domestic market and allow the many Bahamian-owned and operated private airline companies to take over servicing these routes. I have gone on record stating that I think that Bahamas Air should exit the domestic market and allow the many Bahamian-owned and operated private airline companies to take over servicing these routes. It is clearly obvious that I would not allow this to happen until the local providers of air travel domestically had made their supply more robust and their planes better. But I think this should be a goal of the government to remove itself from the provision of domestic air travel. I think we should give the local companies a chance to grow, to flourish, and to allow the sector of private aviation to excel. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the introduction of the new ATR turboprop aircrafting by Bahamas Air of 3 50-seaters and 2 70-seaters has enhanced Bahamas Air's offering. Oh no, sorry, I wasn't supposed to read that. Mr. Deputy Speaker, although Bahamas Air continues to be a relevant entity for air transport to and around the Bahamas, it unfortunately is still reliant on the government's financial support for its day-to-day operations. Therefore, this government understands that change is required for Bahamas Air if it is to be self-sustaining and a better support for the tourism sector. To this end, I've directed the management team to begin repossessing the national flag carrier, placing more emphasis on expanding international routes with a gradual door down on less profitable domestic service. So my vision is that the private companies will deal with the domestic market, and Bahamas Air will be used strategically to open international markets, to provide non-stop direct service to new markets, and therefore bring visitors to our country, and to allow the private companies to move people around the islands. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as we seek to expand and upgrade the offerings of our tourism product, this F&M government will focus on unleashing the power and potential of Bahamas Air. We have watched as other airlines have achieved success bringing tourists to our shores, and in this vein, we have charged the management of Bahamas Air to develop a data-driven strategy for selecting new and exciting markets for route growth. Having launched Port-au-Prince earlier this year, Bahamas Air has already seen this service grow with positive returns. Preparations are already underway for the start of service to Cape Haitian in September. In addition to expanded services within the region, I stand to be the first to advise the Bahamas Air Expense to commence service into Houston, Texas, and Chicago, Illinois, in time for Thanksgiving holiday. The decision for these 2 new destinations was a collaborative analytical effort between Bahamas Air and the Ministry of Tourism. Mr. Deputy Speaker, Bahamas Air, with the assistance of the government, acquired 5 new ATR aircraft through a $120 million collateral loan. Just to break down that loan, $94 million was paid to ATR for the 5 aircraft. $3.9 million was paid for initial aircraft supplies. $9.5 million was used to pay off existing debt with Citibank. $6.2 million was to set up a debt reserve fund. $1.2 million was paid in stamp tax. $2.7 million was paid in lenders' transaction fees. And $2.37 million was paid in legal fees. I wish I was a lawyer on that. Anyway, that's how we got to $120 million. I don't know you lawyers out there. The lawyers got 2.5% of the loan. I don't know if that's reasonable or not. I'm not a lawyer, but you guys draw your own conclusion. Where are we? The present construction of this loan, what is mind-boggling to me, The present construction of this loan, $120 million of this loan, remember now they say that money was used for this, it was borrowed $120 million. $120 million was borrowed for this entire amount. Huh? Anyway, $120 million was borrowed for this loan. And the construction of this loan imposes a heavy $25 million annual burden on the purses of the Bahamian people. $25 million we will have to find to repay this loan starting in September of 2018. The loan was supposed to be, we were supposed to start to repay that loan today, the 15th of June. But I extended the loan until September 2018. So to give us some breathing room. But starting in September of next year, we will spend $6 million every 3 months to repay this loan. Okay? So you add the $25 million for the loan repayment and the $14 million subvention the Bahamas Air gets for its normal operating expenses, you're up to almost $40 million Bahamas Air will be costing us. So that Bahamas Air will cost $40 million. To this end, my ministry will work along with the Ministry of Finance, we have no choice, Bahamas Air and the lenders to better align the payment schedule, which we have done, that will take into account the extended life of the aircraft. Mr. Speaker, I've enjoyed making my maiden speech in this House. I've had a good time. I've told the Bahamian people about Freetown and what has been going on in my ministries. And I thank everyone in this House for being here today and participating in my maiden contribution to this great House of Assembly. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a happy Father's Day and have a wonderful evening.
As many. As many. The chair recognizes the member for Fox Hill. The chair recognizes the member for Fox Hill.
Mr. Speaker, I rise. On behalf, Mr. Deputy Speaker, you all look differently, but anyway. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I rise on behalf of the wonderful people of the great constituency of Fox Hill to contribute to the 2017-2018 budget communication. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I think I caught it from Freetown. I stand here today in this honorable House against all odds, in spite of the naysayers. This is a journey of 6 years. Romans chapter 8, verse 28 tells us, all things work together for them that love God. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg your indulgence as these formalities may take a little longer than many. But it is important to Fox Hill because this is only the second time in history, in the history of the Free National Movement, that a member for Fox Hill has sat in this honorable House. Mr. Deputy Speaker, many said that Fox Hill was a stronghold that could not be broken. Some said we came through on the wave. However, we dare to say that the same dynamics that caused Angliston to escape the onslaught of the tsunami could also
Order, 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 order.
Okay. Thank you, Angliston. I'll begin that paragraph again,
You could,
Mr. Deputy.
please.
Many said that Fox Hill was a stronghold that could not be broken. Some said we came through on the wave. However, we dare to say that the same dynamics that caused Angliston to escape the onslaught of the tsunami could also have kept Fox Hill from that same cleansing wave. Some other dynamics were at work. Something strategic, measured, and built on a foundation of service, love, and faith. 6 years of non-stop ground, church, and community work that culminated in 2 simple billboard slogans. The first boldly proclaimed, and I quote, "No, sir, not this time. It's the people's time." And the second billboard urged Foxhillians to pass the baton for a brighter future, not just for the chosen few, but for all. God knew that Fox Hill needed a change, and so a change was ushered in. Mr. Deputy Speaker, there is an iconic television series, that American television series called Cheers. The theme song said, "You want to go where everybody knows your name." Outside of the name that I made for myself in the sporting arena, there is the name of my childhood and my formative years. So, to all the family members, childhood friends, and little children who call me Shelley, Cousin Shelley, Michelle, to the good and strong people of Congotown, Fox Hill, where I was born and raised, Adderley Street, Dorset Street, Grand Street, and Step Street, Fig Tree Court, Cox Street, Bernard Road, and Johnson Road, you came through big time for your home girl. Thank you. To the people throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and especially those in Fox Hill, who are now calling me David, I say thank you. But Chanel is just as powerful and would do just as well. To all of the kind and wonderful people of Monastery Park, Monastery Heights, Eastwood, Johnson Estates, Garden View Estates, Gleniston Gardens, Maranatha Close, Foxdale, Freddie Munnings Estates, Canon John Pugh, Rita Pugh, and St. Anne's, Smithsville, and Foxville proper, you refuse to let the runner go to his coffin still holding the baton. You caused the baton to be passed. Thank you. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in the course of the general election campaign, the people of Congotown received a letter from the former representative of Fox Hill. In that letter, the former representative explained that he had petitioned the Boundaries Commission to add polling divisions number 7 and 8, Congotown, from St. Anne's, and put them into the Fox Hill constituency. God indeed works in mysterious ways, his wonders to perform. There is some truth in the old saying, be careful what you wish for. You just might get it. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I must say a special posthumous thank you to my mother, Nurse Miriam Maud Pratt, who was looking from above at me. In honor of her today, I am wearing her watch. It stopped many years ago, but I think she would be pleased that I am wearing it today in this honorable House. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this is one of those cases where the goodness of the mother is visited on the daughter. Even after leaving this earth 18 years ago, she was still working for me. As I traversed Congo Town and Foxville proper, people were still telling me stories of her kindnesses to them. Many of them were still very emotional about it, even 18 years later. They remembered her moving around Foxville in her little yellow Volkswagen Bug. To them, she was the best auntie, the best nurse, the best friend. They had faith in her, and they have now reposed that same faith in me. I am humbled, and I am grateful. To my brothers, Daniel and Bernard Ferguson, I could not have done this without you, not for 1 minute. To all my other siblings, I say a heartfelt thank you for the support and for the love. I know how proud you all are to call me sister. To my nieces and nephews and little cousins who were much too young to vote, but acted as though they could. You made me laugh. You are constant reminders that yours are futures worth fighting for. To the Pratt and Conyers family, you are special. You helped me to move a mountain. To Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis and the Free National Movement National Council, thank you for the nomination. During my nomination launch at Doris Johnson High School in November 2016, my body of work in Foxville and in the F&M, including the commemoration of the 25th anniversary of the death of party founder Cecil Wallace Whitfield, led our leader and now Prime Minister to describe me as one of the hardest working persons in the F&M. The Prime Minister made an impassioned plea to Foxville saying, "You were with us in 1997. We want you back. For God's sake, come back. I love you. Do you love me?" Mr. Deputy Speaker, we delivered, and Foxville is back, only for the second time in the history of the F&M. Mr. Deputy Speaker, while it wasn't easy in the early years of my campaign, at the end of the day, I ended up with a fantastic team of campaign workers and supporters like you would never believe. Those who worked the ground, those who cooked and kept the office, those who managed the campaign, those who organized, and others doing everything else. In the closing weeks of the campaign, we had a team that I would characterize as the hardest closers in the business. I am Xerox trained, but this new crew of ground workers, nothing. Time of day or night, location, gathering, nothing fazed them. They were on a mission, mission accomplished. However, like Southern Shores, I dare not call out a list of names because I will get into serious trouble if I even attempted to do that. But they did amazing things, and I thank them all from the bottom of my heart. Nevertheless, I will take the liberty to call one name because it is the right thing to do. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to say a special thank you to this lady. After the 2012 general election defeat, my brother Danny told me that if I was serious about another run in 2017, I would have to stay on the ground for the entire 5 years. Little sisters do not often listen to big brothers. However, this time I did. So 2 weeks after being defeated at the polls in 2012, I started my 2017 campaign. And Prescola Hall started it with me. So I say a special thank you to her. In those years, it was often just the two of us walking from street to street and door to door. We walked the soles out of quite a few shoes and sneakers. And then, in 2014, we picked up a crew from Umbrister Street and Roma Street, the very heart of PLPville. And then the race was on. I also want to say thank you to the Foxhill Association, who stood firm and told the National Party that if you move Chanel, we will campaign against you. Then towards the end, others sought to cash in on the foundation that we had worked so hard to establish over the 5 years. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to say thank you to Dr. Greg Swan, who actually believed that what our data showed was right. And to Barry Malcolm and Joshua Sears and Johnny Ann Dorset, who also believed even though they had not seen the data. We won 8 out of 12 polling divisions, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and ran very close in 4 of the stronghold polling divisions and 1 stronghold polling division number 1, which theretofore had been unthinkable, unbelievable. It was not an easy road within or without, Mr. Deputy Speaker, but Almighty God was in the mix, and I thank him for the win. Mr. Deputy Speaker, finally on this topic, I would be remiss if I did not thank Laureate Roll and Sean Thompson, who put my much talked about ensemble together for the opening of Parliament with the now infamous and much talked about hat. Thank you very much, Laureate and Sean. You did Foxhill proud. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to talk about the economic potential of Foxhill. I have always believed in the potential of our country in general and the vast and untapped economic potential of Foxhill in particular. Foxhill is where I was born, delivered by a midwife at home on Burnett Road, and Foxhill is where I grew up. So I have a vested interest in the economic well-being of Foxhill. My primary job in this honorable house is to vigorously and faithfully represent the good people of Foxhill. Mr. Deputy Speaker, even as I stand here today, my work has already begun. In partnership with a team from the Ministry of Tourism, a Bahama Host Community Program is taking place in Foxhill Community Center. 25 unemployed people from around the constituency have started a 2-week certificate program to help their job readiness status. It is expected that they will graduate on the 29th of June, 2017. Notwithstanding the foregoing, Mr. Speaker, over the past 50 years, and certainly in the last 15 years, Foxhill, in spite of being an historical powerhouse whose economic potential is vast, has been neglected, ignored, and relegated to file 13. Please note here the tense, the past tense, has been. No more. No more, Mr. Deputy Speaker. It is my intention to agitate and to fight to cause the historical and natural attributes of Foxhill to be used for the economic, social, and personal benefit of the people of Foxhill. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I listened to the member of Freetown, and he talked about all the redevelopment of downtown Nassau, of increasing Bahamian ownership in our economy, of cultural expressions in downtown, immersing people in the culture of the Bahamas. He talked about marketing the Bahamas as a cultural destination. I heard downtown, I heard Inagua, I heard plenty other places. I did not hear Fox Hill. Freetown, we will talk. So instead of exploiting the value of the natural and historical resources of Foxville and other communities like it, our leaders went outside of the country to borrow someone else's culture, to serve as an economic stimulus for local entrepreneurs and to drive international tourism to our shore. Again, unthinkable, unbelievable. 12 million of the people's money spent the first year, 9 million spent the second year. Close your eyes. Don't imagine Carnival. Imagine $20 million spent in Foxhill, or Gambia, or Adelaide, Baintown, Cat Island, or even, I dare say, places like Angliston, Camp Road, St. Barnabas. Okay, you ain't got all that much to go around. Mr. Deputy Speaker, what a considerable amount of the people's money they use to borrow other people's things. When do we, as a people, and especially as leaders, get to the point where we leave behind forever the old saying, it must be better if it comes in over the bar? When will we get to appreciate the true value that is right here under our noses? I have heard of Bahamas Air charters going down south for Carnival, but I have never heard of BWIA or Liat flying charters up to our cultural celebrations. Or maybe I just missed it.
You're right.
We tout something called urban renewal. There's nothing wrong with that, nothing at all. However, it does sound strangely similar to something that Edmund Moxie tried to get the country to do some 40 years ago. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we have been talking about heritage tourism for years. It was part of Jacinta Higgs' 2007 manifesto. It was part of my personal manifesto in 2012, as well as the F&M's manifesto of 2012. But we didn't win that one. I have seen it finally crop up, perhaps as a last-minute gasp in manifestos of others interested in representing the Foxville constituency. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the F&M Manifesto 2017 says, we are committed to launch a focused heritage tourism initiative and further incentivize creative economy that will provide both economic growth and human development. Mr. Speaker, sir, I will actively and relentlessly seek out pieces of budgetary allowances and or international grants to establish Foxville as a historical trust to preserve and protect historical architecture, monuments, environments, and cultural aspects of the constituency. Reestablish the Foxville Museum such that Rumpke Foxville, they know what I'm talking about, will hold one of the bright keys to our future. 3, ignite the freedom flame on Freedom Park so it can stand as a beacon lighting the way to a bright future for Foxville. Ensure that cultural tourism and heritage tourism become an economic stimulus to create jobs for residents of the constituency and is a source of social, cultural, recreational, and educational benefits for all of the residents of Foxville. Freetown, the honorable member for Freetown, talked about the flamingos in Inagua. And I want to let him know that in the constituency of Foxville on Sherwood Drive, there is a bird sanctuary. Send some our way, please. We also want to ensure that the residents of Foxville, all of Foxville, and what it has, provides a strong sense of personal pride of place and belongingness to a place gifted with many wonderful positive attributes by the Almighty. Mr. Speaker, this is why they sent me here. This is the job I intend to see through. Mr. Prime Minister, my Prime Minister, Mr. Deputy Speaker, on the 2nd of February 2016, asked Foxville, as I said earlier, if they loved him. On the 10th of May 2017, Foxville answered with a resounding, yes, we love you. On that same date in 2016, my Prime Minister told Foxville, I love you. Foxville is going to need that love, Mr. Prime Minister. Mr. Deputy Speaker, it is not my intention to stand on the floor of this honorable house like the honorable member for South and Central, the former honorable member for South and Central Eleuthera, and the former honorable member for Nassau Village, and cry to my Prime Minister, as they did to theirs, that nothing had been done for their constituencies and by extension, their constituents. Foxville expects much, much more. Mr. Speaker, Deputy Speaker, I am very pleased that Gombe Summer Festival will be returning to the lineup of festivals. New Providence is an island with many communities. There is no overriding or compelling reason why Gombe Summer Festival must stay on Bay Street or on our quay. I am proposing that Gombe Summer Festival should move to several different sites during the course of the summer, instead of remaining downtown for the entire duration of the summer. I am proposing that the pilot stop will be Foxville. I don't mind it moving to Angliston after that, or to Gambia, Seabreeze, Pinewood, but Foxville pilot stop. There are benefits to such a move. It is another opportunity to take the visitor outside of the capital so that he or she has another chance to experience more of our country. It is an opportunity to provide revenue generating opportunities for another part of the island, the Foxville constituency in this instance. And it makes good on the government's promise to uplift some of the less affluent areas. Jobs and entrepreneurship. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in our manifesto to the Bahamian people, we said, and I quote, entrepreneurs, not the government, are the primary drivers behind new and expanded businesses. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we heartily agree that this is the way forward in the 21st century. You see this trend all over the world, with startups such as Google, WhatsApp, and thousands of entrepreneurial ventures that have literally changed the way the world lives. Mr. Speaker, in the Foxville constituency, we are looking forward to this kind of transformational change, whether we live in Eastwood, Monastery Park, Garden View Estate, Maranatha Close, or any of the communities of Foxville. We no longer want to just survive. We no longer want to just get by. We want to, as promised in the Bible, have life and have it more abundantly. Mr. Speaker, enough is enough. We are just tired of this miserable life. Mr. Speaker, this F&M administration has a unique opportunity in this time and in this place to do what no other government has done from Woodes Rogers in 1729 straight through to the administration of 2012, to borrow a phrase from my colleague, the Honorable Member for Garden Hills. Mr. Speaker, this administration has the opportunity to lift not only Bain and Grandstown because of their inner city designation, but to lift Gambia, Foxville, Angliston, Pinewood. But I do understand. I do understand. I do understand what the member for East Grand Bahama told us about the country and its fiscal situation. Old Mother Hubbard went to the cupboard to get her poor dog a bone. When she got there, the cupboard was bare, and so the dog had none. I fully understand the painful and unprecedented financial position that the country is in. I do not expect miracles, but I still make the case for the Foxville constituency, because we will turn this financial mess around and resuscitate the economy to good fiscal health. Successive administrations have missed the opportunity to do something grand and transformational in our traditional areas. I am speaking about it from the perspective that it is an opportunity to be seized. It is an opportunity to do something big, something meaningful, something lasting, and something that can dramatically change for the better the lives of the good people of the Foxville constituency. This is an opportunity to bring about positive change for economic stability and an opportunity in Foxville. Do this, and watch how crime decreases. Watch how education becomes a higher priority for parents and for students. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we are behind the times, as the member for Freetown said. Global trends and prospects for cultural and heritage tourism are: Western Australia Council on Tourism reported the following: heritage tourists are one of the highest yield tourism groups. Heritage tourists spend 38% more per day than traditional tourists. Heritage tourists stay 34% longer than traditional tourists. Mr. Speaker, how can we not take advantage of it? An article written as late as February 2017 in Jamaica tells how 2 places in Jamaica will soon be made World Heritage Sites because they understand what's happening in tourism. The Dominican Republic is way ahead of us. Its colonial zone is an area that's much visited and rakes in huge revenues for that country. We are looking to be full participants in the budgetary commitments to give entrepreneurs jump start. Our t-shirts during the 2017 election campaign had the caption, "Jump Start Foxville." Here is the opportunity to do so. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to tell you about a little entrepreneur I know who lives in polling division number 3, Grace Terrace, off Bernard Road, former PLPville. By the way, we won in there. She is 10-year-old Janika Rami. When I met Janika in 2015, she had already been in business for a year, having started at just age 7. Janika is a marketing genius. She knows and understands her customers, and she knows her base very well. She sells salty sausage, chips, and cups. I became a repeat customer. Janika uses the money she earns to replenish her stock, buy school supplies, and then she leaves some for her savings. Governments would do well to learn from Janika. We need many more Janikas. Mr. Speaker, as it relates to jobs and entrepreneurship, I want to ensure that Foxville residents have equal access to jobs, to ensure that Foxville residents have access to local and national government service contracts that provide for ongoing upkeep and maintenance of the constituency, that Foxville residents have access to local and national job readiness and training programs, established a local labor exchange at the community center in Foxville to facilitate high school and university graduates and unemployed constituents. We will establish that in short order. We will establish an online Foxville constituency list similar to Angie's and Craig's list. to establish an on-call list of local builders, tradespeople, professionals, artisans, tutors, mechanics, musicians, service providers, and food caterers. Even if it is not possible in this budgetary cycle, we eventually would like to be accorded the same government tax incentives and concessions reserved for the inner city and have Fox Hill established as a tax-free zone for economic and cultural development. I'm feeling the love. Fox Hill was at one time the breadbasket of New Providence. We are fully prepared, and I won't preempt him, to take advantage of any opportunity that the Minister of Agriculture and Marine Sciences will be bringing to us. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Minister of Finance in his budget communication told us that essentially the cupboard is there, but that a commitment deferred is not a commitment denied. He said, let there be no doubt, we will implement the vision and plans in our manifesto. Mr. Deputy Speaker, despite the state of our economy, we are confident that the Deputy Prime Minister and our cabinet and this government will return the Bahamas to good fiscal health. On the night of May 10th, 2017, when we returned victorious to our campaign headquarters on Burnett Road, my cousin Charisma Smith grabbed me and showed me a verse of scripture on her smartphone. It was from Joshua chapter 24, verse 13. It reads as follows: "And I have given you a land for which you did not labor, and cities which ye built not, and yet you dwell in them. Of the vineyards and olive yards which ye planted not, do ye eat." Indeed, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Lord works in mysterious ways, his wonders to perform. In the last months leading up to the 2017 general election, Fox Hill was a beehive of construction activity. The unfinished community center that had languished in the midst of overgrown bushes was essentially completed just weeks before the 2017 general election. I have a community center. So there is a community center that will be fully utilized for the benefits of the residents of Fox Hill. Mr. Speaker, Deputy Speaker, work began to establish parks in 4 communities in the constituency, again, weeks before the general election. I have 4 parks: Foxdale, St. Anne's, Garden View, and Smithville. The number of projects undertaken weeks before the general election was unprecedented. Imagine, Mr. Deputy Speaker, if all this work had been done over a period of 15 years, how much further along Fox Hill would have been. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the number of exceptionally gifted people who hail from Fox Hill is sometimes eclipsed by the news of crime and murder. We are on a relentless mission to ensure that we will not be defined by the negative things which happen in all communities, but which seem to take on mammoth proportions when connected with Fox Hill. So after listening to the voice of the people, my team and I have put together a program we call Safe Fox Hill. None of it is revolutionary. It doesn't need to be. It is a program with a steady and everyday focus that basically relies on what people have told us that they want. Mr. Speaker, our collective experience is that when you don't listen to the people, you feel. Whilst the people might put up with you ignoring and neglecting their needs for a while, every rope has an end. and they will eventually hand you your marching ticket. So I have listened. Within the constraints of this budget, we will initiate new programs and strengthen existing ones that combat crime and reduce conflict. Mr. Deputy Speaker, many people have told me that Foxville people are tribal. It might not have been meant as a compliment, but I have chosen to take it as a compliment and to use it in a positive way that will promote and reinforce the many things that connect and bind us as a people. And I will work tirelessly with all of the stakeholders in the Foxville constituency to resolve the issues that divide and separate us from living safe and fulfilling lives. I will work with the Minister of National Security and Superintendent Stephen Adderley and his Eastern District team to strengthen and expand community policing programs. I want to encourage wider community participation in homeowner and crime watch associations. The homeowner associations in Eastwood and Freddie Munnings estates are functioning and active associations. They make positive impacts on their communities. Let me tell you the story about the garden we planted in Freddie Munnings estate. Freddie Munnings estate has 2 green spaces. One on the northern side, just as you enter, and the other at the top. The first green space became an idea of the community to plant a garden. So we planted a garden. We planted pineapples, we planted pepper, we planted basil, we planted thyme, we planted coconut trees, we planted banana slips. And in the fullness of time, the garden grew and matured. And the produce from the garden was shared among the people of the community. This is how we build community, and this is how we will build Foxville. This is the benefit of homeowners associations that work. Other communities are interested in establishing homeowner and homeowner type associations in their neighborhoods. And the president of the Functioning Homeowners Association has pledged to lend her assistance to help them get started. This is to help the communities that make up the constituency to become and interconnected for the good of all. Within this budgetary cycle, I will be working along with the Minister of Youth and Culture, the Minister of National Security, the Minister of Social Service and Urban Renewal to take full advantage of budgetary provisions established under these heads for all manner of youth and community programs. I will be relying on these provisions to provide support for community groups, organizations, and churches committed and dedicated to developing, empowering, uplifting, and mentoring young people through healthy and life-affirming activities such as brownies, scouts, guides, cadets, big brother, big sister, and peer groups, such that they multiply, flourish, thrive, and spread out in great numbers throughout our constituency. Mr. Deputy Speaker, our efforts are also directed at providing support for existing and new community building activities for adults and the elderly. With the sting of the general election hopefully behind us, we can get on with the work of doing the things that we discussed before the election. These include combined choirs, and I have made a solemn promise not to audition for the choir, mentorship for young men and women, including young mothers and fathers, and any segment of the community that is in need of assistance. Mr. Deputy Speaker, everything is not doom and gloom. There is an excitement in the air. People want to be a part of developing their communities. Instead of simply complaining about what is not happening, people in Foxville are volunteering to make things happen. Given the fiscal and budgetary constraint enumerated by the Minister of Finance, I believe he went so far as to speak about tightening our belts I am especially pleased at the response to our volunteer Foxtail program. People from all walks of life have come forward to volunteer their time, their talents, and their resources. A number of professionals have already volunteered their time to tutor school-aged children, to mentor young men and women, to work with the Foxtail Festival Committee, to work at safeguarding the heritage and historical attributes of Foxtail. And as far-fetched as it might seem, in these times when so many people are jaded and laboring under difficult financial burdens, 3 separate sets of people have volunteered, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to clean and actually invest in the upkeep of public spaces. Mr. Deputy Speaker, to the extent that we can successfully implement and manage these deliverables, we will be well on our way to a safe Foxtail. Flooding and drainage. Mr. Speaker, many people think that flooding and drainage problems in our country is really an issue primarily affecting Pinewood Gardens. Not so. We have our share of it in Foxtail. People in Eastwood have told me that the drainage system on Passion Drive is inadequate. They tell me of the loss of furniture and fittings due to flooding during heavy downpours. They also tell me that they have made repeated efforts over the past 5 years to secure assistance from the various administrations, from the previous administration, but to no avail. Until this general election cycle, the drainage and flooding issue in Eastwood appeared again as the last gasp campaign promise from the previous representative. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the flooding and drainage problems don't stop at Passion Drive in Eastwood. There are several other locations where the flooding and poor drainage or no drainage causes problems for pedestrians and motorists alike. When something that is a major inconvenience in everyday living, normal people are not happy about it, but they figure they can do nothing about it, and so they settle. And sometimes the best way to deal with a problem that nobody will deal with is to vote a government out of office. The major areas of flooding in Foxtail are the west perimeter of Freedom Park, extending into Springfield by the Urban Renewal Office and going as far south as Davis Street. Burnett Road, 50 meters west of Coburn Street and east of Grant Street. On Burnett Road, west of Adderley Street, on the northern side of the street. And on Burnett Road, east of Budget. And in Cox Close, west of Raming Street. In some instances, Mr. Deputy Speaker, people have covered their yards with carpet just to soak up the water and to avoid slipping in the muddy yard after the water finally drains away. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I have not only heard the cries of the people, I pledge to them in my manifesto to investigate within 100 days after assuming office all areas of major flooding within the constituency. From this investigation, we will develop plans for implementation of and timetables for systemic relief and effective ongoing preventative maintenance. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in this regard, I have spoken to the Minister of Works, and I have written to him and made a formal request for assistance, which I have no doubt will be forthcoming and completed in the promised time frame. I have no doubt about that. Infrastructure and maintenance. Mr. Speaker, we are planning to go deep into heritage and cultural tourism for the reasons set out earlier. For that initiative to be successful, we must have good roadways. Mr. Deputy Speaker, even if we were not planning a major heritage and cultural tourism initiative for Foxville, the proper, timely, and ongoing maintenance of roadways, verges, utility installations, street lighting must be carried out. These are the things that all governments have a responsibility and an obligation to provide for their people. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the days of calling your member of parliament to intervene to have a street light bulb changed or to have a pothole patched should have been a thing of the past a long time ago. Trimming vegetation from utility wires should be a normal part of the maintenance programs of the utility companies. Mr. Deputy Speaker, after the passage of Hurricane Matthew, Armbruster Street and a few other streets in Foxville were without electrical power for about 13 days. A number of utility poles had been brought down by the ferocity of the hurricane. The amazing thing is that in many instances, it was difficult to see these overhead utility wires because they were heavily draped with crawling vines and other creeping vegetation. The thickness of the vegetation that covered, more like smothered, the overhead utility wires closely confirmed that the vegetation had not been trimmed from the utility wires for a long, long time. In this case, the past is the past. Let it lie. Going forward, however, we expect that these basic but important services will be carried out on a regular and systemic routine. Whether these services are performed by the utility companies, direct employees, or by independent contracted persons, we expect that these services will be performed. We insist that these services are delivered as they should be. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Atlantic hurricane season started on the 1st of June. This means that a hurricane can occur at any time until the 30th of November. We expect and insist on regular tree trimming services. For those utility companies or privately contracted companies, we want to see you doing your job. The people expect to see you out there doing your job. We expect and insist that the proper, timely, and ongoing maintenance of all roads, but especially Bernard Road, Foxdale Road, and Prince Charles Drive, be carried out as they are the major arteries serving the constituency. We expect and insist on maintenance of sidewalks year-round. We expect that sidewalks, where needed, will be contracted out and built year-round. We expect that as a result of this, there will be no sidewalk contracts totaling $30 million or even $1 to give when the next general election cycle comes around. It is a bad practice that has gone on for far too long. It must end, and Lord, let it be with us. We expect and we insist on proper and well-maintained street lighting. Most of the Foxville constituency is a walking community. Women, men, and children walk everywhere. They walk to the parks, they walk to the store, they walk to their friend's house, they walk to church, they walk to wash houses. Thank you, Mr. Roberts, for the grocery cart to carry the clothes in. They go on evening exercise walks and runs. They walk during the day, they walk during the night. So street lighting is important, not only to illuminate the way, but as a safety measure for our residents. So I'm putting you on notice. If you have, or if you expect to have a contract to maintain street lights, do your job. Each contract has an exit clause, so do your job. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I listened with horror as the member for Elizabeth presented his contribution for the budget. He painted a stark picture of how we stack up against the region and against the world in various health-related measurements. We are not doing well. We should be very concerned. We should also be very glad that as the minister said, his third attempt at trying to win Elizabeth was the charm. And now he sits in this place where he can do more good for more people than the specialist nature of his practice allowed him to do. I am happy that he is sitting in that seat. Mr. Deputy Speaker, he has my support for programs for health and wellness that he will be rolling out as it speaks to the will, as it speaks to what we need in the country and what we need in Foxville. And so we will be supporting whatever programs he brings out for recreation, health, and sustaining health. Mr. Deputy Speaker, Foxville and the communities surrounding Foxville have long been a gem that has flown under the radar. This is an opportunity for this House to do something different, do something out of the ordinary. And we have 3 members of Parliament in this place that hail from Foxville, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The member from Pinewood, the member from Southern Shores, and the member from Foxville. I depend on them to realize that Foxville is also their home, and that Foxville, after all these years, should have been elevated to... Okay. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we have more people that want to come. We've got a big tent, but come bearing gifts. Mr. Speaker, the Deputy Speaker, I am delighted to be in this place. I have worked hard to be in this place, but not just to be in this place, to be here to make a difference for Foxville. Foxville has given this country the best that it has to offer. This country has not always given Foxville the best it has to offer. Foxville gave to the Bahamas a young lady named Chanel Ferguson. She carried the flag around the world, and she represented the Bahamas sometimes as the lone female. Foxville gave the Bahamas Reverend Dr. Philip Ramey. And each time we say the pledge, that is a man from Foxville. We had a central bank governor, Mr. Julian Francis, another man from Fox Hill. Mr. Speaker, Foxville gives its best. It is time that this country gives something back to Foxville. If you drove through Foxville 26 years ago, or even 30 years ago, you will not see any appreciable change. Is it right? Is this how we grow a nation? This is the time. Every MP, every member of Parliament, look inward. Look at what every community needs. Look at the communities that have challenges with crime. Look at Foxville, look at Angliston, look at Kemp Road. As the member for Fort Charlotte says, we throw over $130 million at national security, incarceration, fighting crime. Maybe it's time to throw that kind of money at supporting neighborhoods so we don't have to spend that kind of money to combat crime. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in closing, I support the budget as presented by the member for East Grand Bahama, and I support it with the full expectation even in its weakened, limping form, that it will do good for Falkville and the good people from there. God bless this place. God bless Fox Hill. God bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
As many. Chair recognizes a member for Cat Island from Kingston, Salvador. The chair recognizes the member for Bamboo Town.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House do now suspend until 10 a.m. Monday, June 19th, 2017.
It's being moved. It's being moved and second that this honorable House be suspended until the 19th. Pardon me? Members, please. The chair is speaking. All right, Agneston. It's being moved and second that this honorable House be suspended until the 19th of June, Monday, at 10 a.m. As many may remain seated. Those opposed will rise. It's being carried. Business of this House is suspended until the 19th of June, 2017 at 10 a.m.